are realtors not telling you about their fees? How much are realtor fees for buyer? How much are realtor fees for seller? Hi, I'm Lydia Rowe, a realtor in the Miami Valley region in Ohio, answering your questions. Since I've been a realtor, I've noticed there's a lot of misinformation and confusion out there in regards to how much realtors are paid and how they're paid. Sometimes folks think we're making mega bucks for not much work. And if I'm being honest, I was kind of one of those people before I got my license, so I get it. I think most people know that generally realtor fees are going to be about 6% of the sale, 3% of which goes to the buyer's agent and 3% of which goes to the seller's agent. But it's not quite that simple. Where the confusion comes in is who pays for that, how is it paid, and who gets what. Also, did you know that there are no set rates, at least not by state and federal laws? Each brokerage gets to determine the rates they charge, and agents within that brokerage usually are locked into the guidelines set by their brokerage. Although there are a few brokerages out there that allow their agents the flexibility to set their own rates. I'll address what a brokerage is in a few minutes, since I realize not everyone knows that either. By the way, if you find that you like this content or anything else on my channel, give it a like, hit subscribe, or write me a comment, because I just love hearing from folks just like you. Okay, today I'm going to break down how much are realtor fees for buyer and how much are realtor fees for seller. And I'm going to share some hidden costs that not every realtor will tell you too. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Let's start with buyers. First of all, if you're thinking about buying a house and you aren't working with a realtor, you are crazy. And I realize that you might be thinking, yeah, you're a realtor, so of course you have to say that. No, you need to listen. You need to hear this. As a buyer, you don't pay me a dime. You heard that right. Now, I have heard some chatter in the national real estate arena that this could be changing in the next few years, but as of now in Ohio, buyer agents are paid by the seller at closing. So the real truth is that whether the total realtor fee is 5%, 6%, or 7%, you as a buyer don't pay that. The exception to that is if you have signed an exclusive agreement with your buyer's agent and you decide to buy a house that is offering that agent less than 3% commission or whatever it is that you guys agreed upon in that contract, you may be responsible for making up the difference in that. A good buyer's agent will always negotiate and try to get that completely covered by the seller, but that can't always happen. So especially if you're wanting to look at a lot of for sale by owner or sheriff sale or auction sales, you need to know that you might be responsible for that. Otherwise, having a buyer's agent is a no-brainer. I can't tell you how many times I've seen buyers get really bad deals because they just call the sign or the number online for that listing. In that case, you're talking to the agent that is representing the seller. They work for the seller. And if you negotiate a deal through them, they get to pocket both the buyer agent commission and the seller agent commission. This is called a dual agency. And they do have to disclose this and get permission from both you and the seller to represent you both in the transaction. But you can see how this is an immediate conflict of interest. And for the most part, I would highly recommend avoiding this unless you super trust the agent. Often, and I don't blame them, a listing agent will offer a discount to the sellers for allowing them to operate as a dual agent, bringing the total to 5% instead of 6%, for instance. If you, as a buyer, decide to allow a listing agent to also represent your interests, you should make sure that you're somehow benefiting from that and not just the sellers, since it's the sellers who are paying the agent's commission either way. So the seller is going to pay 3% to their agent and 3% to yours at closing. If they represent both sides, they will pay themselves 6%, or they may offer a discount to the seller to entice them to agree to a dual agency, so the sellers only pay a total of like 5%. But that usually doesn't benefit you as a buyer at all. Okay, so now that you know why you'd be crazy not to have your own representation as a buyer, let's take a look at realtor fees for sellers. Now, sellers typically have less closing costs, which is why this has traditionally fallen to the seller. After all, it's the seller who is hopefully making a profit and cashing out on some great equity in the sale. So sellers, at least as of now, are the ones responsible for paying both their listing agent and the buyer's agent. Now, again, the exception to this is if you are selling by owner, you can opt to not pay the buyer's agent commission, but this is really shooting yourself in the foot because 80% of buyers are looking with an agent, and if that agent is not going to be compensated, they are understandably reluctant to bring your home to the attention of their buyers. On the other hand, if you offer the typical 3% commission to agents bringing a buyer, you're automatically opening up a huge pool of buyers for yourself. The downside to that is that you're now negotiating with someone who does this for a living and often are going to get the short end of the stick, whether you realize it or not. So that's how agents get paid, and they get paid a percentage of the sales price at closing, paid by the seller to the agent's brokerage. And here's where I will explain what the difference is between an agent and a broker. There are two kinds of real estate licenses you can sit for: your real estate sales license and your real estate brokerage license. All legal real estate agents have their sales license. Some have their broker's license. In order to get your broker's license, you have to have had your sales license and also meet extra criteria, including passing a test, more education, continued CE. You also have to have been part of a certain number of transactions and had your license for a certain amount of time before sitting for the test to become a broker. I won't bore you with all the details. There's really no benefit of working with a broker versus an agent, except possibly experience. But what I do want to break down is the commission splits. So every real estate agent, we are often called realtors, which is trademarked name for real estate agents who are also a part of NAR, the National Association of Realtors. So that's the only difference between a realtor and a real estate agent. So all realtors are real estate agents, but not all real estate agents are realtors, if that makes sense. Every real estate agent needs to be a part of a brokerage. Their license is held by that brokerage, and that brokerage is responsible for that agent and the liability that goes along with that. You've heard of some of the big ones: Keller Williams, Coldwell Banker, Sibsey Klein, Century 21, Home Experts, EXP. There's tons of brokerages, from huge national brands to little one-agent brokerages. Some of those brokerages are also franchises. Why does this matter to you as a buyer or seller? It might not, but if you're like me, you might be a little curious about how much of that 3% commission is actually going to your agent. When you sign a buyer's agent agreement or a listing contract, you are actually signing with the brokerage, not the agent. The brokerage's name has to be just as big as the agent's name in all marketing materials. This is in Ohio, different things for different states. If the agent decides to leave the brokerage or gets fired or loses their license or whatever in the middle of your transaction, you're still in contract with the broker. They will just get another agent to represent you. So let's, just for funsies, break down the numbers on a $300,000 home using some of the most common commissions and splits. Then I'll get to the hidden costs you need to know about, so stay tuned. So you sell your home for $300,000, 3% goes to the buyer's agent brokerage, 3% goes to the seller's agent brokerage. From that 3%, the agent's brokerages pay first their franchise fees, if they have any, then that agent's commission based on the splits and contracts they have negotiated with the agent. So let's take Keller Williams. Although there are always exceptions, generally Keller Williams agents get paid on a 70-30 commission split, meaning the agent gets to keep 70% and the brokerage keeps 30%. And there is a 6% franchise fee. So 6% of the 3%. So with Keller Williams, they have caps on the amount that you pay into the franchise and the amount that you pay to the brokerage on a yearly basis. So high producing capped agents get to keep the full 3% commission, but that's a very small percentage of agents. So for the majority, this is what it looks like. 300,000 sale, 3% commission is 9,000. Franchise fee would be 560 of that. Broker's cut would be 2,532. Agent's net commission is 5,908. If they're seller's agents, they need to pay for flyers, pictures, marketing ads out of that. If they're buyer's agent, it's the gas mileage. Now, it can even get more complicated if an agent is on a team or a group, as there's further commission splits before the agent gets their portion. And on top of that, if they got that lead from Zillow or a referral from another agent, they might be paying 25 to 30% of their commission back to those lead sources before they see their commission. So all in all, it's probably a lot less than you think it is, considering how much time and money is put into finding or selling homes. But don't get me wrong, it's a good gig. A colleague of mine gave me some good advice when I came into the business. He said, Lydia, for every 5 transactions, you're going to have 3 that you're going to have to work your butt off for, 1 that will make you want to quit, and 1 that will be so easy it will keep you going. I found that to be pretty true, and although those seemingly easy and smooth ones are blessings, I've also found a lot of joy in the challenges and problem solving and grit that's involved in this business. So now that you know all about the realtor fees for both buyer and seller, who pays it, how it's paid, and all that, are there any other realtor fees you should know about besides the commission? I want to clarify, I am not talking about closing costs here. Buyers and sellers alike absolutely have closing costs they're responsible for with the mortgage and title companies, and I can break that down in another video. I'm specifically only talking about fees for or from the realtor and brokerage. And is there anything above the commission percentage that you as a buyer or seller may see at closing? The answer is yes, but not always. This is where it can get a little sketchy, and honestly, it's not a big deal as long as it's disclosed and explained clearly to you. But what bugs me a lot is that often there's an extra fee or charge that's not explained clearly on the front end and could potentially be avoided if you went with a different realtor. So I think it's a little shady when it's just thrown in there without explanation. I can show you in the contract where this fee shows up, and it can be called a bunch of different things. You'll see it called brokerage fee, transaction fee, admin fee. I'm sure there is all kinds of other things, and it can range from $200 to $900 in the Dayton, Ohio area. Some brokerages don't charge anything additional on top of the commission percentage, and they choose to pull transaction fees, admin fees, brokerage fees out of their cut of the commission rather than charging anything additional. Other brokerages, depending on their structure, find it necessary to separate this out, and it can be legitimate and necessary expense. I just think that you should know that this varies, not only from brokerage to brokerage, but also from agent to agent within the brokerage. I know agents whose brokerage don't require anything extra, but they still charge an extra brokerage fee due to, again, how they structure their business. Quite often, it's a legitimate expense and one you're probably happy to pay as long as you know about it. For instance, maybe your agent has a transaction coordinator they pay that helps make sure to get your deal to the closing table. Or maybe they offer extra marketing or high quality photos or staging or videos, and they need a way to offset that cost. It's not wrong to have these charges, but my beef is when it's not explained or it's presented as if it's a charge that everyone has when it's not. Sometimes it's not up to the agent either, but up to their brokerage. So just be aware of that. And if you have concerns or questions, you can ask your agent about it. Bottom line, I hope you feel that your agent is 100% worth the cost. A good agent is worth their weight in gold. Okay, maybe not gold, but you wouldn't believe how many times deals almost fall apart and they're saved by a good agent, or how much less stress buying and selling can be when you pick a good one. So how do you find the perfect real estate agent? Maybe I'll talk about that in another video. Until then, interview, ask questions, but most of all, go with your gut. And just like what makes a good or bad teacher, it's not always based on experience or numbers. Do they answer your questions? Do you enjoy them? How do they handle crisis? Are they honest? Do they have integrity? Are they knowledgeable? Are they accessible? Are they good communicators? Do they have a good reputation? Hope you enjoyed this breakdown on realtors' fees. Here are some other videos you may enjoy.